In this video, we are going to create a slider like the one you see on the screen. We are going to use Next.js, Tailwind CSS, and a library called Swiper.js. If you're not familiar with Next.js, don't worry, because the focus of this video is to give you the fundamentals that you can use with Swiper.js to create any slider that you want. So you're going to take the skills that you're going to learn in this video and apply it to create any slider that you want. First of all, let me give you a brief overview of this testimonial slider. If you hover around the slider, you'll see that the navigation buttons appear. And I'm going to show you how you can create these navigation buttons because these are not the default buttons that comes with Swiper.js. Another thing is that you can see that the slider comes automatically. So I'll show you how you can do that, but you can also use these navigations to move from one slider to another. Another important thing is this slider is responsive. So if I reduce the width of the screen, you can see that the slider starts to reduce. And if we reach the mobile version, you can see that we only have one slider and a snippet of another slider showing here. Another cool thing about this slider is that on small screens or mobile screens, you can see that the navigation buttons disappear. So we are going to do all that in this video. If this seems interesting, then let's get started. Okay, so now I'm in my Next.js application, and you can see that I've made some imports above here, and I've imported Swiper and Swiper Slide. If you're not familiar with Swiper.js, what you can do is come to this website. It's called swiperjs.com. Over here, you can come on docs. If you're using React, you can come here. If you're using Vue.js, you can come here. If you just want the normal documentation, you can come here or here. Everything will help. But I'll come here, and then there are instructions on how I can install Swiper.js, and there are also this starter code that I can use just to get started. So now we are here. In this code, what I've done is, since we want to assume that we are fetching this data from maybe a database or an API, I've created an object, or rather an array of objects. So every data that is here is coming from this object. You can see we have review, which gives us the text of the review, and the image, which gives us this image, the name, and the position, and the rating. I'll also show you how you can use this rating to determine the number of stars that will have like this yellowish background and everything. So stick around. So since we have done this, this is the current state of the video and the example that we're going to create. So let's get started and start using Swiper.js. So this is how you use Swiper. The first thing that you need to do is to import or use the Swiper component. In this case, we already imported this component above. This is the component that we're using, Swiper. So first of all, we need to have this Swiper component, and inside here we need to have this Swiper slide components, and these are the actual slides. You can see here we have slide 1, slide 2, slide 3. These are the actual slides. So in this case, since we are going to be looping this array of objects, what we need to do is to use map. So I'll have my map loop through the array of objects. So I'll say reviews.map and arrow function. Don't forget to have your return inside here. Okay, now that I've done that, what I need to do is now to create the first div element inside here. So remember, we have now this Swiper component, which is the parent component. Inside here, I want us to have now the Swiper slide. So this is what we want. And since we are using map, it's required that we use the key attribute and provide the key. Now, since here we've taken the map, and it will give us each object, and we will receive the object as I'll just call it review, and then give it an index. This index, since we don't have any unique IDs inside, this index can be crucial. So for the key, I'll give it the index, and then the review, we are going to use that object inside here. So the first thing I need to do is to have this division that holds this data. So to do that, I'll create a div inside here. So this div, let me just give you the structure. It will first of all have the image, and then after the image we'll have the text, which will be a paragraph. After this text, we are going to have the name, which is going to be an h2. After this name, we are going to have a div that contains these star svg files or star icons. So after the star icons, we are going to have another paragraph which contains the position. So inside here, we're going to say review dot position to give us the position, and then I'll come here. This is for the name, so it has to be review.name, and then above here it should be the actual review. So for this, it will be review dot review. And then let's come to the image. For the image, the first thing I need to give is the source attribute, which is the link. So for this, it will be review dot image, and then I need to give it an auth attribute, and then you need to give this a proper name for SEO and everything. So, and then another thing I need to give this is the width and the height, which is a requirement for Next.js. So for the width, I am using these images that are 100 by 100, and the reason I'm using these square images is so that when I want them to be rounded, it will be easy for me to do that. So I'll give it a width, the dimension is width 100 and height 100. Okay, so this should work. So let's test it. As you can see, now we have these sliders, and we have the image, the text, the name, and the position. Okay, so now let's give it a beautiful style that we have in our actual example. So to do that, the first thing I want to do is to come to this parent div after the swiper slide and give it a few styles. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to give this a class name with a bg of slate 100, just to give it a grayish background. And then after that, I want to give it a flex. So it will be flex, but by default, you know that flex makes the things to flow in a raw form. So what I'm going to do is to give it a flex core. Okay. Once I've done that, I want to have the items center. Now you can see we have the item centered, and I'll also give it a py padding top and bottom of 4, just to give it ample space. And after that, I'll give it a px of 2, just to give it space in along these areas. And then after that, that is that for. Okay, one final thing that I want to do is to give this spacing. So instead of giving each element a spacing, I can come at the parent div and give it a space y of 4, and it will apply same spacing along the vertical axis. So once I've done that, another thing I want to do is now to come, so let's do this. Okay, I want to come to the image and I give it a styling. So I'll come here and say class name, and I'll give it a rounded full, just like that. And after that, I want to go down and style the H2. So this, I'll give it a class name, and then I'll give it a font semi-bold, and then I'll leave that alone and go to this. I'll leave it like this, and we'll leave the div for now. But you can see that now we are displaying one slider per view. This is not the effect that I want. I want us to have 2 sliders. Actually, we have 3 sliders per view, and then as we decrease or increase the width, you can see that now it starts to respond, but the total number is 3 sliders per view. So to do that, what I need to do is to come here under swiper component and add the following. So the first thing I need to add is the breakpoint. Okay, I'll add the breakpoint. So here what I'm saying is, for above 640 we should have 2 sliders per view, and we should have a space between of 20, and then centered slides should be false. I'll talk about that in a moment. And for width of 1024 and above, I should have 3 sliders per view, and then the space between should be 20, and then the centered slides should be false. So if I do that and save, you should see that now we have 2 slides per view. And then the other thing I want to do or to talk about is that if I keep minimizing this, you can see that we have 1 slide per view, which is the default. But this is not what I want. What I want is to have, so I'll come here, sliders per view, and then I want to have 1.3. All this does is give me another slider here, just a snippet section of the slider. So let me add space between so that you can see this. I'll just say 10, refresh it, and you can see this is another slider appearing from here. But what I want is not this. What I want is to have a slider appearing from here and another slider appearing from here. So to do that, that's when we add the centered slides. So if I give this true, it will center my main slide and thereby providing ample space on the sides. So if I do this and refresh, you can now see that, let me refresh again, we have some space here. But overall, you can see that it just a snippet of the slide on the left and on the right. We are going to solve this space at a later point, but for now, let's stay with this. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our stars. So to do this, let me just copy this code and I'll explain what we've done. I have this code here, and with this code, what we are doing is we are creating an array of 5 elements, since this is a 5-star based rating. And then the most important thing is we are going to loop through these SVG files 5 times, therefore producing 5 SVG files. But now the most interesting part is changing the SVG field depending on the star rating that the person provided. So for example, this one has a star rating of 1, and depending on that, we should have that effect displayed on our review card here. This is where the logic stays. So we're saying if the index is less than or equal to the review.rating minus 1, the reason we are subtracting 1 is because this JavaScript starts with index 0, so we want it to match with the indexing for JavaScript. So that's the reason why, and we are saying if the index is less than or equal to review.rating, then we should have a fill of orange, but otherwise just give it a fill of gray 200. So that's why this one is a star rating, and we only have the fill orange for 1 star, and this one has a four stars, and depending on this logic, we are having fill orange on 4 stars. So that's it for the star functionality. And then let's go ahead and see how we can create now the navigation. So let me save this, and you can see now the stars are aligned vertically. To solve that, what we need to do is come here and give this a flex class. So by default, the elements will align now horizontally with this flex. So let's go ahead and create now our navigation button. Okay, so let's finalize this video by creating custom navigations like the ones you see here. So we have this, and we want to add custom navigations. The first thing we need to do is to import the module. In this case, we want to use this navigation module, so we are going to import it. After doing that, we need to import the navigation CSS. But since we want to use a custom navigation buttons, then we are not going to import it. The next thing I need to do, I need to come down here and provide a modules attribute here. And since we are going to use, it will be a list of modules. Since we are going to use navigation, I'll add navigation here. Once I've done that, I need to come below here. And since I'm going to use custom buttons, I need to add this object. So this object has the previous element, which is the ID of the previous button, and the next element, which is the ID of the next button. This is necessary because we want to use custom navigations. So once I've done that, what I need to do is to go where I want to add our buttons and add them. In this case, what I want is to add my buttons down along this division. They'll have an absolute position, so this class will need to have a relative class. So I'll give this a relative class, and then down here I'll have a div, and I want to give it an absolute class. After doing that, I also need to give it a position. So for this, I want it to be top 2/4, which is 50%. It should be aligned on the middle. And then I also want to give it a Z index of 10 so that it can be above anything else. Once I've done that, I will come inside here and create 2 divisions, or div tags, one for the right button and the other one for the left button. So inside here, I'll add my SVG file, and let's see how we can do that. So to do that, I'll go to this website. It's called SVG Viewer, and the SVG file that I want is a caret. So I'll get let me see, I'll get this one for our right div, and this is the code, so I can just copy it bring it to my application, and it should be there. Let me format the document. We will change this, or let me just change the width and the height because this is very huge. Okay, and then I'll come again. I'll grab this SVG, so I can just bring this back here, and then I'll add it inside here. I'll format the document. Once I've done this, let me just save this and let's see what we have. Let me remove the width and the height. Okay, so if we refresh our page, you can see that as of now, nothing appears on the page. So let's fix that. The first thing I'm going to do is add a class name here and give it a height of 5 just to replace the width and height that we removed. So I'll give it a width of 5, and then I also do the same here and save it. Now you can see that we have our icons here. And then now what I want to do is, if I give this a BG of black, the result is it fits the whatever is inside. So what I want to do is to give a width of full to take the whole space. Now that I've done that, okay, let me make this slate 300. Now that I've done this, what I want to do is give this a class of flex, and then this should align side by side, but I want to have one icon on the other side and the other one on the other end. So to do that, I'll give it a justify between, which will give this, will provide the space between the two elements. And then I want to come to this div and edit it a little bit. What I want to do here is to give this a padding of 2. Once I've done that, let me give it a BG so that you are able to differentiate it from the rest. You can see. And then what I want to do is to give it a rounded full, just because I want it to have a circle. So I'll give it a rounded full, and once I do this, I have a full circle. I'll do the same for the other SVG. Okay, but this has to be BG slate 100 just to have the same background as the cards. So I'll give this a BG 100. Okay, I'll remove this background because I don't need it, but I'll give this a BG of 100. Okay, and then one more thing I need to do is to have these navigation buttons outside of this swiper container. To do that, what I can do is, first of all, let's get back here and give it a BG of black again. Okay, so what I'll do to achieve this, I'll come here and create another div, and then I'll take this swiper module and I'll bring it inside here. After doing that, I'll go back here and I'll give this a class name, and what I want to do is to give this a padding, a px of let me just give it a px of 10. Once I've done that, you can see that now we have our navigation buttons outside the main navigation or the main swipe up object. And then I'll come back here and remove the background black because I don't need it, and save it. Now this is what we have. Now there are two more things that we need to do. The first thing is we want this to only appear on hover. So to do that, what I can do is I'll first of all give it a class of hidden. So by default this is hidden, and then on hover I want to give this a class of flex. So you can see nothing really happens because it's hidden. But what I want to do is come to the main here where we have relative and give this a class of group. And once we've done that, I can come down here and say, I'll do this, I'll say group hover. Okay, so it's group hover, and then what I want to do is to give it a class of flex. So you can see now once I hover around the group, this is appearing. But what I want to do is to make sure this only happens on mobile on medium device screens. So I'll give it a class of MD to make sure that this happens on screens that are above tablet sizes, and for mobile screens then this will not appear. So let's just verify that. And then the final thing that I want us to do is, you remember I said I am going to help you solve this. I'm going to help you make sure that we solve this the space thing here, this space. So to do that, the easiest way to solve it is just to come here and give this a loop. Just make it loop and you will not experience this problem. And another thing is I have given this a padding. I've given our swiper a padding of 10. I just want this to happen on medium screen sizes, and that's that. So this is what I want, and if I refresh it, you can see that we have this. Okay, so this is what we wanted to create in this video. So let's just look at our final product. Now our final product has all the functionality that we wanted. Thank you for watching, guys, and feel free to subscribe to our channel. By doing that, you help us reach a lot more other people, and you also get notified whenever we create content like this. Otherwise, have a great time.